Good morning, everyone. Microphone check, screen check. Looks like everything's working correctly here. Good, good. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hopefully everyone was able to rest up and get ready for the week ahead. Hopefully you all had a fantastic weekend. Hopefully the weather was nice for you over the weekend, or maybe you were able to spend some time doing something fun outside, or I don't know, something entertaining that wasn't the markets. Get the mind off, right? And then coming back ready to rock and roll, refreshed and all that fun stuff. As always, on the left side of the screen, before we jump on in, make sure to read through the Live Trading Morning Prep PDF. Very important to go through and understand everything that is inside there. Just a quick note as well before we jump on in. Keep in mind the YouTube broadcast does have between a 5 and 30 second delay, depending on where you're logged in from, which will definitely impact the timeliness of what I may be talking about at the time. Also, just take a second. We want to give a second to, or take a second to give a shout out to, let me try that over again, to the latest members that joined overnight, over the weekend, all that fun stuff. Thanks so much for the support. I'm pumped to have you on the SSFTG family. If you aren't a member yet, you do have a few different options available to you that you can check out if you're looking to further your trading education and career. Here on YouTube, you can check the join button below the stream. The YouTube family gains access to the extended hours trading room, which continues the morning from 10 until we end the room whenever the market kind of slows down. Every member also gains permanent access to the Discord chat server. And of course, you get the awesome badge next to your name to show your support here on YouTube. To understand what we're doing in our trading approach and all that fun stuff, look no further than the Day Trading Academy. It's no short-term small PDF you're going to finish in an afternoon or anything like that. You're looking at about 19 hours of course and study material, including homework and review. I mean, tons and tons of stuff. So you best tuck in for that side of things. And then finally, the big kahuna, the Mac Daddy, the VIP. VIPs have exclusive permanent access to the non-delayed stream, covering the entire morning session from 9 until we end the morning. And that way you can ensure that you're on the fastest connection possible and you don't miss any beats along the way. Alongside that, VIPs also have access to our monthly VIP webinars, private VIP events, one-on-one scheduling access, all kinds of cool stuff. So whether you're here for the very first time or you're a seasoned VIP veteran over on the Zoom stream, welcome. Glad to have you trading alongside with me this week, today, and all that fun stuff, taking a look at these crazy markets, see what's going on, and rock and roll into hopefully some slightly more stable price action this week. Man, we'll see. Don't forget to grab your morning DP levels. So posted for you this morning in the major 7 markets that we take a look at. Excuse me, I still have a cough. All right. So, make sure to grab those levels, and then we can jump on over and start taking a look at what's going on. So on the NASDAQ side of things, the market did go very, very sideways. And the concern that we were kind of keeping an eye on more so was, you know, hey, this last dive down, is this just the deeper dip that the market's been waiting for because it hasn't had a pullback and we go back to the highs? Or is this a spike into a ledge type formation where the market fails and rolls back over? It was looking like it may have started to get going on that bear failure to the downside, but the sellers just could not get the leg lower. And when it started cracking to the upside, every seller that was trying to get that going, which, to be fair, at the time had a phenomenal risk reward. If their stop was above the highs and their targets are way the heck down here, I mean, it's hard to disagree with them. But when it started breaking to the upside, why wait until it goes way up here when it's very obvious they're wrong? Nobody waited, obviously. And it just went screaming higher going into the end of the week. Since then, we have had a little bit of a pullback, but the big thing that we had here, more importantly, is if we look across the board here, obviously with the market spending that much time up there, they will have created a POC up at the top. But looking from the bottom to top here and kind of seeing where was that created, they created it smack at the top. And you can see where all of this resistance was coming in. And when the market broke higher, where did it pull back to? Weird, right? It's almost like we look for these things every single day and we talk about it over and over again. The sellers failed. It's very obvious they failed, and more likely than not, we're going to get a second leg. Where are the sellers likely going to start getting out once they realize they failed? Back at break even if they can, and they could. They got out of break even, and now we're seeing this bull rally to the upside. it's very obvious bulls' intention here that they're trying to get this continuation higher, and we're breaking above the POC from before. And if we stretch this a little bit further forward to kind of gauge what's going on here, sometimes that will change. So let's adjust it here. It didn't really change. Modified a little bit slightly further down now that we have all of the current price action, including the new highs and everything else. So with that said, I mean, if the market does want to pull back, maybe it gets back to 660. But all things considered, there's a metric ton of reasons why bulls are trying to get this thing going to the upside, and it's looking incredibly strong. We're just running into settlement from Friday, and that's kind of what we're dealing with at the moment. We're stuck on it, and we're stuck on it at 750. God, I hate these 750s. These levels drive me nuts. And here we are again, 750. It's like a recurring nightmare. Well, we'll have to see if they can get through it. Over on the S&P, I mean, it's a similar situation. We obviously had that deeper dip and a continuation up, but it's no surprise that the S&P went back to the upside like we were talking about. The S&P is the stronger of the markets. It's wanting to keep going to the upside. And if we look at the hold that was off the bottom, it was an L5. Typically after L5s, you want to see an L2. They couldn't quite get that L2 pullback over here, so they're still going to be hunting for it. And when we have this pullback over here, ta-da! They finally got it. That was the low. And it went screaming all the way back to the upside, leading into a continuation on Friday with more rallying higher. With this new high, they have broken to the upside, and if there was any concern or conviction from the... let me try the right shortcut commands here. From the sell side that they might have been building a POC, we'll go up to the top again for the S&P and kind of see what they were able to accomplish here. Noting that it has already made a new high. The POC was over here. We can see buyers defending. They started giving up, and sellers started trying to get it to roll back over. It hasn't really pulled back. So from the S&P's perspective, we really haven't had that value pullback, and sellers are still potentially stuck that are still holding the bag. That's a really bad problem for them. Maybe they've modified it a little bit if we drag this a bit further forward, see if it's given us some more info. At some point. There we go. No, it still hasn't. It did modify it a little bit further up at 42.05, but we still haven't gotten the pullback. So sellers are still stuck on the S&P. The NASDAQ did not have that. So that could cause some pretty strong movement here. We'll have to wait and see, I guess. Over on gold, we've got some pretty solid continuation to the upside, but the big thing here, they tried breaking above the highs, totally fell on their face, rolled back over, and when it came time to try to break up again, well, they fell on their face again, a recurring theme, and it rolled all the way down. Now, when that rolled down, we were talking about how this might be a 1 to 1.5 to 1 move. This ended up doubling down. It's kind of like job's done. They sort of finished everything all in one big swoop. And it was pretty obvious now that we've got the reactionary bounce back to the upside. Almost looks like a copy paste and flip it and reverse it and whatever that sense is. I mean, it looks like a mirror, right? It's almost perfect. We've got that drive down, big V bottom, slides back up, little pause, big slide back. I mean, it's incredible. The only thing that we've got to see a bit more of now that we've got a little deviation away from that mirror is a flag. And this flag is looking for some pretty strong continuation to the upside. The one very obvious thing here that we had is with this drive to the downside, if we drag the volume off of the top and we pause just before that breakdown, we can see that the volume was shifted right there, and the buyers had already given a chance, or been given multiple chances when it got stuck up at those highs, to get out. And we had that big slide to the downside. And usually you expect 2 legs down. It did it a bit more aggressively than I think people were waiting for, but considering that move, the market's going to want to see, where did they reposition? As we have time that goes on, they weren't able to spend a whole lot of time down here, and there was not enough time to build a POC, at least down at the new low. As time did carry on, if we go over to the higher lows, we can see that they still have not shifted the POC. That's a big deal. That means that the buyers have not had enough time to accumulate enough down here to create a situation where they'll be able to exit at 907 in full profit territory. They're looking at 907 as a zone of potential resistance. Now, if we drag this a little bit further forward, we can see that it did change right before it took off. So that gives us a little bit of a clue. You can see the reason for this aggressive blow off and why that candle was so massively huge isn't necessarily because of some news announcement or anything like that. That was the rally on Friday. But it is also in line with the fact that they dumped everything they had to get their POC down here. So now when it's rallying higher, this is all profit. They've secured their average down at the bottom, and they almost ran out of time. But they didn't, and that's the key. They got it just in the nick of time, and it was so much that it caused this giant spark to the upside. So a lot of bulls are going to be waiting for that follow-through continuation for at least another leg up. Would make a lot of sense to see the market drive back up into those 07s where the POC was. That would be the first major objective. Gold's looking nice and strong, though. All right, bud. Over on crude oil, we've got a very nice continuation to the upside, and there's just no pullback. I mean, we know what to expect from this. This has happened over and over and over and over and over again. It's ridiculous, but we've got these giant spikes up, no respite, no pullback, just sideways chop, blow off continuation. These persistent bull trends, as frustrating as they can be, we know what to expect. When they do finally pull back, that pullback is a face melter. And it rips everybody's face off on the way down because they're expecting that higher low. So, when that happens, there's usually a POC shift. Let's see if that's happened yet. Drive it all the way up to the highs. The last time we saw it, there was a POC down in the 66s. Yep, that hasn't changed. So we can see they've definitely tried. Look at the volume that's standing out here. It hasn't shifted yet, but if they are going to shift it, that's the spot that they're going to do it right there. If it starts failing underneath that without enough time for them to do so, then we're looking at 65.94 as a launching pad for the bulls. Right now, sellers haven't positioned enough to get themselves in a favorable POC location where a move down would be profitable. So they're still in damage mitigation, damage control, which makes sense because there's been no pullback. What a shock. Now, if we look at this from a cycle side of things, obviously there's been not even an L3 pullback, but the first pullback off of the lows was an L1. That doesn't happen very often. As it continues up, we've got another L1 as it pulled back. We've got another L1 as it pulls 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 back. Chances are buyers are going to be defending that L1. What do you think, huh? That's where the POC is too, or at least that's where it's going to shift to. I don't think that's a coincidence. This looks like a lot of sellers are stuck, and knowing the way that these moves go, typically that first drive down is nothing more than those sellers getting out at break even, creates a secondary lift to the upside. It wouldn't be a surprise at all to see the POC shift right here. Buyers bounce it back up to the highs. We see that $70 mark right there. Rotate off of an inside lower high, break down, grab the L2 finally, and then spike right back up to the highs again. That would make sense. Whether or not it's going to do that, I don't know. But that's what would make sense, at least. That's what I would hope for. But unfortunately, can't trade off of hopes. We just got to wait and see what the market wants to give us. Over on the euro, nice continuation, kind of to the upside. It's a little bit funky. The way that this put in this 3 press bottom was nearly perfect. And the fact that it retested it down here the way that it did, it's really hard to ask for a better looking wedge bottom than something like that. And the buyers were not, they weren't shy at all. They just slammed the gas pedal to the floor. Yabba dabba dude that thing all the way up to the stratosphere, and all the way up it goes. Now, with this movement higher, we've got this bull flag, and the better thing here, some of the other markets, like on gold, and a lot of them are displaying this flag. But the thing with the euro is we have a false break on the lows in the form of a twin reversal. As far as a flag breakdown failure goes in a rotation back up, it's hard to ask for much better than that. And a lot of sellers are potentially stuck on the wrong side with that happening, and they're just hoping that they can get a pullback to get out of break even. And so far, well, maybe it's happened if they've been lucky enough, if they got a good average, maybe it hasn't. Either way, though, if it starts cracking above this 21,800, it's fairly obvious, or, you know, relatively obvious or certain to say that there's going to be a lot of stops there, and maybe enough to cause a sparked stop run all the way up to that big 2,200. We'll see. On Bitcoin, I mean, it's not doing anything. It's just kind of going sideways. As far as the overall movement is concerned, this is very obviously in a nice little wedge. It was trying to break out through the lows, and you can see we're still respecting the outside low of that wedge. Until we're able to break up to the inside, it's going to have a hard time keeping going higher. And if it does go higher without that break, it's going to be more of this grindy garbage that it's got going on right now that I don't think anybody really wants to deal with anymore. Now, one other thing that we may be able to keep an eye on is a possibility of a shorter term wedge or a shorter term narrowing wedge like this, even though the larger one isn't really playing ball. We might have some smaller, shorter term ones that will give us something to play with. And, you know, that gives us a low side zone of support around 35,000, high side resistance at around 38. It's just stuck in the middle right now. Over on Ethereum, got some pretty good sideways action here as well. A little bit more bullish. Similar, it kind of reminds me of the S&P and the NASDAQ, right? Like Bitcoin is the NASDAQ and the Ethereum market is the S&P. It's just, it's a bit more inherently bullish. It's having some higher lows. It's not pulling back as far. There's just more bullishness on Ethereum than there is on Bitcoin. I think that makes a lot of sense. We've been talking about that for about the last 2 or 3 years now. But realistically, that's what we're seeing in Ethereum here with all of these basically double bottoms or like one tick trap lows. It's rotating all the way back up to the highs. Buyers are all over these bottoms and they're not shy about it at all. We've got some serious bullishness here and they're looking for that 3,000 mark back on the highs. We'll see if they can crack back above. Flipping over to the NASDAQ and taking a look at the bigger picture here. This is the very obvious concern. I mean, we already kind of started the day off with this concern, but this is re-exemplified on that concern. We've got this giant flush to the downside, and if we remember, there was the L1 to the tick right on the base. It was holding it beautifully, rallied all the way up to a new high. Kind of. I mean, we have to call it a new high, for lack of better words. Oh, man. But after it got it, it just got whaled to the downside. The thing was, when the sellers tried to load up for that third press, they ended up with a higher low. Cycled all the way back up. More sellers getting stuck in. So we see sellers trying to get a drive going, but they fail, and they fail. And now they try to get going here, big POC shift on the highs, and they fail. That's a really bad that's a big problem. That is no good for the bulls or for the bears. That's a hugely bullish for the bulls, because what this allows us to do is figure out not only where sellers are likely going to want to get out, cough cough, at this earlier POC. They haven't even been given a chance for that. But it also allows us to project upward where the market may want to continue up to. Now remember, before we had this larger POC up at the top. So it's not like the bulls have a clean and clear, super easy way all the way up to the highs. They still have a level of resistance up here at the 13,920s. It's got to break through that. If they just rifle through that area, then we're probably going up to the objective that we'll be able to find off of the lows to the POC cluster. And usually a doubling up of that makes a lot of sense. And that puts visually, just kind of eyeballing it, targets around 14,300 to 400. That's a lot of upside potential from where we are now at 13,700. And shorts know that. Sellers who are stuck know that. What they want today for shorts, for sellers to be able to pull this back together, they need to dumpster today in the same way that the bulls did to them back again. Right? They have to shut this entire bull move down today. That's their only choice. They've got to get back below this POC. They've got a heck of a lot of work to do, and they better hope they've got a lot of zeros in the account, because they're going to need to use them to get this thing to fall lower. A lot of shorts know what's going on here, and they know that if they don't scramble to GTFO out of their positions, it's going to get a heck of a lot worse real fast. So there's some serious upside potential over the next... I mean, remember, this is a daily chart. So, I mean, realistically, if you factor in 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 days for the rest of this week. So, I mean, the rest of this week could potentially be an incredibly bullish week. Buy on Monday and then basically come back on Friday, maybe Thursday. And, you know, so that's one kind of mentality that we're coming into the week, but it's not just this week. When we have these kind of breakout moves, this could potentially spark a multi-week to monthly type move, especially if you start breaking above the 920s. There's a lot of oomph in this if this can keep going. Shorts and longs both know that. They're just trying to figure out what side of this they want to be on or what side they don't want to be on anymore. Looking at the 60-minute chart, we can see from a cyclical standpoint, we had this big, nice, deep L5 off of the base. Typically with L5s, we get the L2. And remember what we were talking about here. This missed it. It never physically got the test. And that's a market inefficiency. Markets hate that. They don't like that when that doesn't happen. And L5 is supposed to, and it doesn't have to always, but it's supposed to rotate off of an L2. That's generally, almost always, what it does. Like I said, doesn't have to. But when it misses it like that, a lot of bulls got real tasty, real thirsty, real hungry down there, but they didn't get anything on their plate. That's a problem. So when they're given a chance to get something on their plate, I think they took it. So with bulls screaming this thing to the upside, with this kind of bull rallying to the highs, a lot of bulls are going to be looking for that L1 trend to continue. And if we roll that all the way back up to the new high closes that they just formed, the L1, if it does want to pull back, a little bit further down, but if we can get a pullback down to the 13,640s, that would be where those L1s start sparking again. And what a fantastic way to get a bull cycle going too. Drop at the open, make everybody think that this thing's going to get obliterated because it just made a new high, just to get buyers in the L1 because it did pierce a new high, and see it cycle all the way back up to the top. We'll see. Over on the 15-minute, we did have that move to the downside that equaled out. Get that out of the way. And as far as the POC cluster before that, we can see at 13,661, that's where it was. But if we drive this up to the new high, that will give us a point of interest coming into today as well. That lines up pretty nicely where that L1 is, 661, 660. 645. It'd be nice if it was a little bit lower, I guess, but now looking at the session so far, the Asian to Euro session is bear stacked. It did move lower. Since then, it's V-bottomed off of the lows, pierced into the Asian session, and now we're forming higher lows. So, I mean, I have to assume that bulls are trying to take this thing to the upside, but that said, it is pulling back a little bit further. And from the cycling off of the lows, I typically want to see at least an L3. They haven't gotten that yet. We've got an L2. It's not to say that it can't keep going higher, but a lot of times it is going to want to pull back to give more of a completionary test. There's your completionary test. That doesn't necessarily mean that this has to be the bottom right now, but it's already showing us what it's trying to do. Let's look at this from a volume standpoint here, from the lows to the highs. POC smack in the middle, so sellers, this is their time to shine. If the sellers are going to take it, this is where they're going to do it. It's underneath 748.50. They've got the POC on the right side of things. The moving averages are on the wrong side of things. That doesn't help, but they failed back underneath settlement. I mean, they're trying. I don't know how long they're going to try, but they're trying. Projected all the way forward. Hasn't changed. 6 minutes until the open. 5.5 minutes or so. The NASDAQ does have a potential short to try to get some follow through. It'd be at around like 44.25 or so. But realistically, I'm not going to give it a whole lot of room because we know what's going on. And if I'm going to approach it from this standpoint, I have to go for a higher, actually a better entry. That gives me a target at 733.25 for a 2-to-1 if I got an entry at 44.75. This is the last ditch effort for the sellers, and I'm not willing to give them room or build in. It's either a yes or a no, a 1 or a 0. Well, I mean, I was looking at 44.75 and it went up to 44 and already cycled down. All right, I'm gonna cancel. I missed the entry. It didn't fill me. It missed me by 3 ticks. Okay. Well, we got 3.5 minutes until the open. 9:28 is going to be the next big time zone, time period. 9:28 is the drop dead final orders for the at the open orders. I can't modify them anymore. Got to get that last big batch of orders in. I would love to see if we can get... I mean, if the sellers are going to take it, getting a break back down below like 13,730 is a bit more proof. They've obviously got to fill in a lot of volume back in the 725s, 720s. It's a huge void in volume back there. 928 right around the corner. Now, I missed the original entry, but if we can get a quick little pop into that zone, it might be a scalper's entry point now. Going to be a bit more difficult from a swing point. Yeah. There's the visualized what I was looking for on the trade, but good old NASDAQ. Yep. See if they can get a bit more oomph to the downside. Remember, coming right into the open here, I would prefer to see a bit downside at action to get down into that wider 60-minute L1, back to retest the POC from the daily, get that dip back to the L2 from the 15-minute, right? Get a little bit of a pullback, start hitting some of those bigger hill, cliff, O-zone areas. Right now where we are is just kind of hovering around in the middle. You can feel the tipping point here. If the bulls lose their grip underneath these 730s to 720s, that's kind of the hot spot. If they lose their grip in backfilling this volume and they start sliding underneath it, that could cause a lot of problems for the bulls. And that would give that slide lower. You said it was a 1 or a 0. It gave you, yeah, I mean, it gave me the 0. It didn't give me a fill. Either or. 9:30. See what this market wants to do here going into the open. I am slightly on the bear side going into the open here. Bill. How's it going? Welcome, welcome. Everyone else, welcome. I hope everyone's had a great weekend. Really strong bull bar back up on the 500 tick. Wow. Ooh, POC just shifted down. Uh-oh. 13,742.50. Now remember, we just hit the open, so shifting a POC at the open's not exactly a surprise. But the fact that it's doing it here rather than somewhere else is kind of interesting. We just saw the bulls maybe giving up with this POC shift. And now the candles are closing right back underneath it again. I'm going to look for a short opportunity for this to break back down. There's the flush. Beautiful. Woo! Got a bad fill on the first one. The first one was basically break even. The second one worked out really nicely, though, for that quick little pulse. Nice slide back to the downside. Again, I have to be bearish in the short term. I don't really have a choice. In the long term, the only reason I'm bearish is because I want it to pull back to a bigger zone for buyers. Ooh, they close back above. Oh, strong bear bar here will get sellers involved again. That's not it. I'm sorry, I said something. That was my fault. Lately, really gross-looking candles have been working. So, I mean, I guess there's that, but it's not in my wheelhouse. Rotation back up. Bulls will definitely be looking for this to cycle back higher. Sellers just got juked hard. Looking for this to suck back down to the POC for those sellers to get out and push this right back up again. Sellers are stuck. They're like, please pull back. There's the POC test. Beautiful retest. Ooh, strong bear bar back down again. I'm going to reduce risk a little bit on that return. Yep. That doesn't make sense to hold full risk when they're sliding back down again. We're back to the POC, but this time from the seller's perspective. And the bulls are super jumpy here. I'm going to jump ship. Accept the loss while it's still on the smaller side. And recalibrate if we can get a secondary bear bar. A beer bar. There's the bear bar right there. Sellers pulsing back to the downside again. Was only able to get one. See if they can jump back up for sellers. There they go. Beautiful pop back up. Missed the fill on the bid. There we go. Out. Beautiful scalp back up again. Oh, I tried hitting the ask again, but I missed it. One more pop. Come on, NASDAQ. Oh, God. I missed that ask on the fill. Oh. You rotten bugger. They're starting to backfill some of this volume down here in the 20s to 30s. Careful here. My aggression on the downside starts easing a bit. Unless they keep throwing failures like this. We haven't even had the first 5 minutes pass by yet. Sellers did actually get that third leg down. I mean, it really didn't look like it was going to get it all the way down until right at the end. And then it just hammered it. Sellers' objectives still potentially on the table while we have a bear wedge, but if we start cracking back above that POC, we know that's a big red flag. They backfilled this zone, but they didn't give it up. Bulls are going to have to show up to the party with a bit more oomph, though. I'm not willing to go in long down here. Good morning, miss some action, I see. Pretty wild back and forth a little bit there on the POC, but I don't think it's done at all. We haven't even had the first 5 minute candle. Speaking of, first 5-minute candle, the POC on the S&P is at 27.75. Holy crap, the NASDAQ is off to the races. I don't have time. Jumped all the way back up to settlement. I didn't even have a chance. Flush down below the previous bull bar. That's too strong of a bear bar. We are back above the POC. Man, bull's right back up to the highs. Backfill on settlement for another pulse back up again. I'm going to keep it lighter because they're forcing me to either buy very high, and I would rather buy closer to 42.50. I still want to look long. I still like the look of the long, but they're just not really offering it up in a kind way. While I'm waiting for that, NASDAQ's first 5-minute is down here at 42.50. There we go. 2-to-1 objective on the NASDAQ is at up into the 68s, which is what I would prefer a bit more of. We've got a lot of resistance up here in the 66s, 68s up in this area. Nice quick little pulse to the downside. Buyers finally being offered up a chance to get out. Or not get out, get in with a nice little dip buy. Took the first one out at break even because it offered me a slightly better... I didn't get filled in that slide down. Slightly better entry. See if they can give me a better pulse down now. Nice bear bar. I'm going to look to jump ship on the first portion here because I think that it's going to pull back a little bit further and I'm not willing to hold on to the risk if I can get a better entry. I don't believe this move higher either. Although, wait, did they get... They got a 1-tick low? I didn't realize... I thought that was a double bottom. I didn't realize that was a 1-tick low. All right, well, let's see how they want to play it. That does add a bit to the bull side, though. I would love to see if we can get a backfill back down into the 51s, 52s. Nice. Bulls did end up giving a nice little pullback. Upside objective for Bulls is going to be to break back up through the highs towards 64. Very nice jump to the upside. I tried buying the bid there to add another one, but I couldn't get it. There we go. Nice little pullback to Euro session highs. Holy crap. There we go. We have got a metric ton of volume coming in here. I'm going to ease off the gas pedal just a little bit. Volatility is coming in pretty hard here, so I'm just going to let this go for a second. Nice deep dip into this L4. Cycling off of this zone, this is where the L4, L5 buyers are going to want to start trying to pulse back up. We're back to that POC as well. Now, it hit it and then jerked right back above it again. Would love to see if I can get my average just a bit further down, more towards the lows of the range at the moment around 34.25. I've got a bit of work to do for that, though. Back underneath the POC. Not really a decisive breakaway on either side, but notably the bulls tried breaking above higher and they failed with a lower high. So this retest down in the lows here, I like this area for that continuation snap back to the upside. I think buyers are looking to try to get a way better entry price. Nice slide back to the downside, pinnacle point of the wedge. Big jump to the upside. I'm going to utilize that as a reason to reduce a bit of risk and get this in a more favorable location. Ooh, that POC just shifted down. I'm going to reduce a little bit further on that shift. If we can gauge a bit more proof to the upside, 42.50 is the objective, but if they start failing back below the 35s, I'm going to lose interest. They poked it. Which way do we go? Trying to hold off of the 35s. Beautiful pulse to the upside, right back up to the Euro session highs. Very likely we see buyers taking profit off of that retest on the highs, which is the same thing I did. Wouldn't be a surprise at all. Now that my average is in the right place, I like this zone. I've only got one left. See if I can get a quick little dive back down. I'm willing to go back to 2 on a slightly worse entry on the secondary, but I'm not willing to add unless below that. My average is still right around a really nice spot at the bottom of the range. They got to break back through this 5-minute POC cluster, 42.50. POC shifted again. I'm going to jump ship. I don't like that POC shift. The market's treating it as resistance. I'm not going to play ball with that. I've got to see another pulse back to the upside. They gave a nice little reload attempt, but they couldn't finish the job, and I'm not going to sit around and hope they get enough bearishness to the downside and sellers are going to smack this. What I would really like to see is the sellers fail in a really hard way. That way they've got to scramble, jump ship, run for the hills as fast as they can, creating that kind of bull slide to the upside. I don't think we've had that yet. It started to try right here, but they still had settlement. There was enough resistance there to push back off of it. Looking at the impulse POC with the lower high. We're still hovering in that 42.50. And this breakdown here is not good for bulls. This is either the beginning of a launching pad for sellers to drive it down or the beginning of a massive failure from the sellers to try to drive this down. I'm going to look for a short to try to get the continuation of the downside, but keeping size small. I want that deeper pullback in the bigger picture. It makes a lot more sense. But understand the context here. This is either a launching pad for the bulls or a launching pad for the bears. I think we've been given our answer. I'm no longer interested in staying short, and I am very interested in going long. Now, notably, shorts have been they've been given a chance to get in at the downside. Any pullback down here is going to be them getting out at break even, looking for the pulse back to the upside. But this is the last chance for the bulls to get the job done. They've got to finish it. Nice pulse up to 42.50. There's still 180 ticks left on this. It seems like bulls might reload into this pullback here. Yep. Reloading into the pullback. Big pop to the upside. More buyers will be trying to reload into the pullback again. Jeez. They are not shy about it either, huh? Lots of sideways. Break above this 42.50. There we go. One of these days, I'm going to get a fill. There. Okay. First objective on that nice little pop to the upside. Man, these bear bars are no joke, huh? I'm going to see if bulls can... Or I'm not going to get filled. All right. Let me see if we can get a little bit more of a pullback here. I love the bulls reloading into this dip, but I just can't get the fill. I can't get a fill to save my life today. There we go. Beautiful pulse to the upside. I'll take the target there. Nice jump. See if we can get a little bit of a snapback more into the 41s. I still like that 41, 42 area, but I would like to reload. Now that we've got a bit more momentum to the upside, we've got a bit more proof. In order to keep this train going to the upside, it's either going to be the buyers that are already in, FOMO buyers who are buying way up here, or we need that little micro pullback. At the moment, down to like 43s, 42s. Too strong of a bear bar on the top, though. That's not what I want to see. That is a nasty bar. That kind of candle could potentially just cut right through the L2. I hate candles that poke on the top, noting that this is the third lower high. That's the only reason I don't like that one here. It's the third lower high in the larger sequence, and it is a very bearish candle. That's concerning. We've got to be on our guard for stuff like that. As far as the news, or lack thereof, today, we don't have any. 10 o'clock is right around the corner. That's CB Employment Trend Index, I guess, but, I mean, nothing. Nice, strong bull bar back to the upside. Buyers will be looking for a continuation, but I was going to say, they're going to want a little bit more of a pullback to buy into. Nice jump back up for scalpers. Beauty. Give me a deeper pullback, though. I want to sink my teeth into it a little bit more, but I've got to get a deeper pullback. Oh, God, that is a heavy bear bar. Whoo, lordy. I do not want to be the first one to the party on that. That kind of candle scares the crap out of me. That's a lower high now. Secondary entry from the top on the third lower high in the sequence of a possible 3 low. Nope. That's way too many red flags. There will be buyers interested down in the 43s, 42s. More power to them. I can't. Not in the face of that. Okay, now we shut that bear bar down. Now it's okay. That's totally fine if it pulls back now. I just didn't want to see that bear bar continue. Give me that little dip. Come on, NASDAQ. We just invalidated the bears. Give them a pulse. Oh, I tried hitting the bid 3 times. I got 1. Like, are you kidding me? That means I need to hold it, right? Like, we know how this works. The upside objective is just inside the highs. Realistically, I'd like to see it pop back above the 53s. All right, objective back to the highs. I mean, I've got to take it. That's my 2-to-1 target. I was only able to get 1. There's just nothing I can do about that. I hit the button 3 times. 4 times, I think. 3 or 4. I don't know. Whatever. Got 1. 1's better than none. I'll be happy with that. Bull bars closing back on the 5-minute on the S&P above the highs, 27.75 on that POC cluster. They never filled settlement. They missed it by a tick. That's a bit spicy. All right. Oh, man, bulls are coming in with some serious conviction here. See if we can get a quick little pullback down into the 755s. Oh, man, this could potentially be a really bearish bar here. Nope, I can't buy that. That's a hard pass. It's still a third lower high. And that's an even stronger bear bar. I can't. That's against so many rules. Especially on a Monday. Now, just out of curiosity, while I've still got the majority of the morning session going on yet, what would you guys think of not only the faster scalping side of things, which is obviously we've got a lot going on with that with the with this volatility, but also looking for shorter term, and I say shorter term because the next word is swing, shorter term swing type trades that might take place more on the. Might have to use the micro NASDAQ just to compensate, but it might be a way that we can kind of do like a more of an SAC style thing on the side as well. SAC, for those who aren't familiar, small account challenge. We've done dozens of them at this point, but I thought that might be kind of a cool way to split the difference. So I know some people really like a lot of this action, and then other people hate it, and they're looking for, maybe 2 or 3 a day. That mentality, obviously, with 2 or 3 a day is going to be more focused on the 2-to-1 side of things, more on the higher reward, smaller risk. Sounds good. Sounds great. Definitely good. Okay, cool. I kind of figured that would be the response. I just got to figure out a way to put it on the screen. I mean, realistically, like, do we need the ozone and the cliff and the hill on screen? I just don't think it's necessary. And I think the S&P I could even put off screen as well in favor of having the micro NASDAQ for that style of trading, since there's going to be, a good 2 or 3 trades on there. Maybe that's what we'll do. So later, when we go into training time on the extended hours session, we'll move some charts around. We'll try to do some feedback from members, and we'll see what kind of layout would look best. And then we'll probably start kicking that off maybe tomorrow. I'll ease my way into it. I'm not just going to totally flip the script and be like, "Hey, totally new layout." Hey, but that's why I want to build it together in the extended session. I've been noticing lately that I don't really scalp the S&P as much, and I would rather have something that's a bit more applicable, that more people would find useful, and I feel like that fits the bill. NASDAQ rejected settlement again, and this is why I don't like buying those bear bars. You see this movement to the downside? I hate buying into bear bars like that. They scare the crap out of me, and this is why. Nice slide to the downside. Sellers will be looking for a continuation on this, especially on the NASDAQ. The S&P just got hammered to the downside. Jeez. Big dump to the downside. This could be that larger pullback we've been talking about. We've been waiting for. Easing in more on the sell side here. It doesn't bother me as much on the sell side if we can get a pop back up into those 4250s around that POC. It wouldn't hurt my feelings. Now I see why you always say you don't buy into those candles. Yeah, exactly. It's context driven, right? This is all, while the market's still falling apart, it's all context driven. It's the third lower high with that incredibly strong, like everything in the wrong place at the wrong time. I'm not buying it. Right into settlement on top of everything else. Jeez. Just begging for trouble. Potential for sell side interest starting off at around the 3850s. downside objective for something like that would be around the 27.75s. Basically back down to the lows, really. Nice pop to the upside. Couldn't get the extra fill. All right. There we go. Nice pulse back to the upside. This is the shot for those buyers to start jumping ship underneath the Euro session lows, or highs rather. Back underneath the 4250 POC cluster, looking for the slide to the downside, but looking more for a move down to at least the 30s, but realistically down to Euro session lows next would make a lot of sense. We really didn't see a whole lot of interest until we started breaking into these 706s. The first zone of interest would be down into the lows, I suppose. So first objective would be like 25.25. But I would really like to see if we can get another shove down into the 11s. Couldn't get the fill. See if they can pop back up to Euro low or highs. Nice. Retest of Euro. Now this cycle back to the upside, if the sellers don't start showing up to the party soon, I'm going to lose interest real fast. We've still got all these lower highs, so I have zero interest in jumping ship on anything like that. But cycling back down to... might have to deal with like the 3550s a little bit closer now. Secondary objectives, I'll modify a bit further up. $32.75, and then we'll look for the bigger flush down. 23s underneath that. They're back above the Euro high. S&P is bouncing off of moving average support a little bit, for what it's worth, at least. You know me and moving averages. Little micro double bottom at the base of those two bear bars. Breaking underneath it. Close back above it. That was a nice little pop above that bear bar, an initial response from the sellers. A strong bull bar up will get buyers involved. I'm going to reduce just a little bit, knowing that that is the case. See if we can get that nice little push back down in towards the lows. Jeez. They are ripping this thing up and down really fast still. We're coming into 10 o'clock. There's no news at 10 o'clock, but top of the hour can sometimes mess with things a little bit. 10 o'clock, top of the hour. Popped it above the high and then jerked it back down again. Definitely messing with things, huh? I didn't get filled on the bid. Awesome. See if they can get a secondary slide to the downside now that they lost their grip. But we are going into 10 o'clock, so we'll cycle over into the extended session. I couldn't get a fill there either. All right. I'll have to give this some time to figure out what it wants to do after 10 o'clock, I guess. Can't get a fill to save my life. So anyway, that's going to do it for the morning session. Hopefully you were able to have a successful, solid morning session so far. I've been trying to get this stupid trade to go down, but it's forcing me to babysit it a little bit here. We'll see if they want to cycle. Looking really good, though. Anyway, that'll do it for the morning side of things. We'll shift over into the extended hours, and then we'll go from there. So if I miss any questions, feel free to shoot me an email, and I'll get those covered for you from there. Otherwise, though, we will see you all tomorrow morning, all right? Have a great one, and we'll talk to you all later. Thanks.